MindShift Power Podcast.
This is MindShift Power Podcast, the #1 critically acclaimed podcast where we have raw, unfiltered conversations that shape tomorrow. I'm your host, Fatima Bey, the Mind Shifter. And welcome, everyone. Today we have with us Susan Burgess-Lent out of Oakland, California in the USA. She is an author and an executive producer of The Invoice, something we're going to talk about today. We also have with us Troy Jones out of California in the USA. He is the co-producer and co-director of The Invoice. And we have with us as well Dave Lent out of California in the USA. He is the co-producer and co-director of The Invoice. This is a conversation about both the past and the future. So this is going to be a little bit different. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because this generation is the next generation to carry on this conversation. How are you guys doing today, Susan, Troy, and Dave?
Oh, we're good.
Wonderful,
Well,
thank you.
thanks.
Well, I'm really glad to have this conversation with you guys. So I like to dive right in. So let me start off by make sure the audience knows what we're talking about today. So can you please tell the audience what is The Invoice and how did it get started?
The Invoice is a proposed series about the relationship between Black Americans and white Americans, but the money part only. We're interested in explaining to people how much wealth was extracted from Black Americans over the last 250 years.
Oh.
The origin of this was a moment during COVID when I got a hold of a book called From Here to Equality about reparations. It contained a comprehensive plan for national reparations, but it also tracked the extraction of money. And I was reading this book in portions to a Zoom group of young white people. And every time I would read a paragraph, I would cry a little bit, weep a little bit. And this has never happened. And I realized that because the tone of the book was not shaming or blaming me or shocking me, that I was open to understanding what had been going on in a new way. And it made me realize that as a filmmaker, making a documentary or a series about this subject of the financial relationship between Black and white people would open people up if the tone was similar, separating the people from the problem. If the tone was similar, I believe that people would open up the way I did.
That's very interesting. I something that I was thinking about as you were talking is something that I know about life. When it comes to important topics, there absolutely should be different perspectives. It should be presented in different ways. And the reason is different presentation is going to reach different people. And the people that you were talking about that need to be reached by that tone, I completely agree with you. The people that need to be reached by that tone aren't going to be reached by the angry tone. They're not going to be reached by the blame tone. So I get that. And I find that very interesting that was your motivation to get started.
Yeah, we want people to understand the scale of what has happened. Yeah, we want people to understand and appreciate.
I love that. I love that you are coming at it from that perspective. Well, and so we're going to dive a little bit more into that in a minute. So tell us why you chose to frame 250 years of racial injustice as a financial crime instead of a social one. You gave us a little bit just now, but give us the deeper answer.
Well, all the wealth that was extracted from Black Americans since slavery, and that's probably the biggest chunk of wealth that was extracted or denied, I should say, because all of this unpaid labor made it impossible for any Black people to accumulate wealth. And then it continued through Reconstruction, it continued through Jim Crow, through redlining, through mass incarceration. The same things are in play, is extracting wealth and wealth broadly defined as not only money, but talent, expertise, imagination. All of these things were denied full expression from Black people because of the policies of the federal government. We're not talking about individual people. We're talking about a government that consistently found all kinds of excuses to deny Black people what they should have had, like 40 acres and a mule never happened.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
because the change of after Lincoln was assassinated, his vice president decided, well, I really want to curry favor with the Southerners, so I guess we're going to take that land back. Never mind. And so that was a huge missed opportunity to fix this problem early in the game. And it's continued and gone underground in so many ways. And we still have a serious problem with discrimination against Black people in all levels of society, in my opinion.
Uh,
We got to fix that.
Absolutely. It's been ingrained and for many generations, and you don't just flip over a generational cultural norms overnight, unfortunately. But Susan, let me ask you this. You're a white lady. Why do you care about what happened to Black people? I'm
Well,
asking it
that's
that
a
way
really good question.
because people really think that, and they say that at their kitchen table. Those are the questions people actually say at kitchen tables.
Well, my feeling is whoever's going to take up the challenge, good on them. This is a big battle, and I think that we need all the white people and all the Black people who can muster the hope. And I wouldn't be very hopeful if I was Black, but anybody who wants to muster the energy, I think, bring them on. We all have to be part of the solution. And if we don't step up because we're not the right color or we don't care, then nothing will change. Nothing will change unless we unite. And, for a long time, we were battling with the idea that America has a broken heart because white people have denied themselves because of following blindly all the goodies that the federal government threw at them that they took from Black people. We don't know as fully as we can the richness of Black lives. And we know through music and other contributions. But when I was growing up, I didn't know any of that, and I feel bad about it. I feel bad that I did not know the lives of Black people. It would have been
Mhm.
enriching. It would have been huge for me. And
Just
I
like
think
we don't. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I think that we've created a barrier that shouldn't be there.
Could I
Case
add
in
something
point.
to that?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you imagine what this country could be like if $20 trillion, which would be a proposed settlement as reparations, $20 trillion were flying around in the economy, $500,000 for every Black American. Can you imagine how much this country would benefit by all that money flying around? The Federal Reserve Bank has said that if reparations were paid now, the gross domestic product would increase by 8.5% within the next 8
Wow.
years. The country would be richer, better, friendlier, more prosperous. Everybody would benefit from reparations. So that's another reason to care about what happens to Black people.
Yes.
This is a debt. This is money we owe them.
I love that you gave some concrete. You came with receipts. You gave some concrete numbers and not just ideals and concepts. The one key thing that you said, Susan, that I think is worth repeating, and it just really sums it all up in one sentence: we all need to be part of the solution.
We do.
And I asked you that because there are people that will say, "Why are you two white people heading up this thing about Black people in America? Why aren't Black people doing it?" And some already have. Some definitely already have. But you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter what your background is. If you see a problem and you want to be part of the solution, you should be. Period.
Yes, I mean, right now there's like 350 plus organizations in this country that are looking at the issue of reparations, either as a study thing or as a active advocacy for their local government to pay reparations. I really don't think that local governments can possibly handle the demand. I think it's a federal government issue, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
we need to
Yeah,
take it.
absolutely. Now,
And
Troy,
in
let me.
fact, I'm just going to say, Troy, Troy and I on the production side, we're sharing decision making equally. So it's not
Oh, okay.
it's not Susan and I heading it up. It's on a production level. It's Troy and I heading it up. So let's hear from Troy.
Well, thanks,
I
Dave. Yeah, I was just going to add in, I appreciate your and Susan's passion for this project. That's what really brought me on and made me want to be a part of it. As a, as a youth growing up myself, I was able to study a lot of African American culture, and also was brought up to have a lot of, I guess, to be really proud of being Black in America, even though, as an older Black man, I have seen a lot of discrimination and faced some. But I think this film gives me an outlet to channel that passion that I had as a youth growing up, fighting for civil rights, seeing my own parents fight for civil rights. My dad was an activist, and he was a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War, because of his belief that Black Americans weren't given equal rights. So he refused to fight for this country against
mm,
the Vietnam War. So he spent 2 years in prison over his beliefs. So, like I said, I come from that background, and when I heard Dave first approached me about this project, I was in the middle of a career transition and was looking to pivot and doing something more impactful. And so when I heard that he was working on a reparations film, I was immediately attracted to it. And like I said, the passion, hearing it from like you said, two white people that had this much passion about fairness and repairing the harm to Black Americans, even though, as you said, as a Black person, I sometimes still don't have hope that this is something that will ever happen, or that this country is the federal government, I should say, would ever go along with this. But I do think we need to put in as much effort as we can, and hopefully attract the young people to get involved and take up this fight, because it is important, and it can change so many lives.
Here's the thing I want to add to what all three of you just said. I think people don't realize economics are why so much of American culture is the way it is. Economics are why slavery existed. Economics are why we buy the products we do, why our culture tells us that we must be obsessed with beauty. Economics are why our food system is the way it is, so that we can eat the problem and they can sell us the solution as pharmaceuticals. This goes beyond just the black and white issue. In this episode today, we're talking about specifically the Black Americans. But what I want the audience to understand is that there's a pattern here, and this is a part of that pattern, and why it matters. It matters because this is a part of the bigger conversation of economics, and we need to stop falling for and believing everything so someone else's economics can benefit. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing a real consolidation of billionaires running the country, and I think it can only get worse if we don't say, that these things can't stand. We have to, tax the wealthy. We have to make it fair. And reparations is only one small part of a bigger piece of restitution, which is to make things right, is to return what belonged to somebody to them. And that's the wealth the accumulated wealth that was denied. We have one interview subject who talks a lot about if we can just begin to imagine the scale of this. That's where the crime part comes in. It's a massive financial crime. The scale of this affected every Black person that ever showed up in the United States as a slave or a free person. And we owe a debt. We owe a debt, and we have to pay it back. We just have to.
So let me, speaking of that, there's a lot of people, including some young people, who hear the word reparations and they either shut down, roll their eyes, or they're dismissive. Some say, well, that happened a long time ago. And some say, I never owned any slaves. What do you say to that? And what does the evidence actually show about people, about who benefited and who is still paying? Like, what are the details of that evidence?
It's happening now. It's been happening constantly for the last 250 years. Slavery was the major extraction. If you calculate estimates calculated by economists have figured out that if you add up the amount of hours stolen, and remember, these slaves were working 24/7, on call all the time, overtime, the amount of day work effort that was stolen, the freedom that was stolen, the dignity, amounted to, with interest over the last 250 years, 6% interest, amounts to $9.2 quadrillion, which is impossible to even imagine what that number is. And so that was just slavery alone. When you add up other things like Jim Crow laws, redlining, GI Bill, mass incarceration, systemic racism that goes on constantly right now in banking and finance and home loans, you name it, is happening. It's been happening constantly. So this is nothing old at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not old. It's still continuing.
And here's the thing: people benefit. Well, certain people benefit from the narrative of that's old. Because if we can get you to believe that it's old and irrelevant now, then we can get you to not pay attention
That's true.
and go and watch a reality TV show or get a BBL, one of those booty injections instead. We get people to focus on dumb stuff instead of real stuff like this. You're absolutely right. I love the fact that you guys are covering the financial end of it. I really do. Because a lot of times when you hear this, it usually is coming from a Black person. It usually is about the injustices. And you're like, yeah, it was injustice, but let's talk about some numbers. Because people don't think about it that way. And I love that you come with receipts, and your whole documentary comes with receipts.
Yeah,
And
we're coming with the bill, right?
Here you go, pay this off. Here's the invoice.
Dr. King said, what did he say? The next time we come to Washington, we're coming
to pick up our check.
With our check. Yeah, I'll add that again, I think being a little more pessimistic, that I sometimes feel a little bit, I guess, I don't know, wary of the word reparations too. And we've had internal discussions about, well, maybe we should focus on the racial wealth gap, because that's something, that's still ongoing. It's still widely, there's a huge disparity still. And
getting bigger.
Yeah. And, one of our interview subjects wrote a book called The White Bonus, going back to your previous question. And she was a white woman named Tracy McMillan, who detailed in her own family the, I guess, the white bonus or privilege of, being white in this country. And she explained how her parents inherited $1 million, and that came from her grandfather, who, went to school in the GI Bill, I believe, and then worked at a bank and worked his way to be the president or one of the executives of the bank, which were all things that were not opportunities that weren't given to Black Americans, but because he happened to be white, he got to go to school. college for almost nothing, and another family member, they were able to get property through the Homestead Act, which was a huge way the middle class was created, where land was given to mostly white Americans, and as long as they were able to have a use that land productively, they were given that land, and so these are just different ways that wealth was accumulated that Black Americans were denied. So part of the film is to educate on that too, how we got to this place where there's such a disparity of wealth in this country, and I think ultimately we think the only way to help kind of alleviate that is through restitution and reparations. So that's the goal of focusing on the economic part of it.
I have a question for Troy. This
Sure.
documentary covers events that happened long before the youth that are alive today were even born. Why should a 16-year-old in Nigeria, Brazil, South Korea, or wherever care about what the United States governments did to Black Americans over 250 years?
That's a great question, Fatima. I think that it's important because as we know, capitalism and the power of the U.S. is still, it's impacting the whole world, and
Mhm.
I'm sure there are examples of, indigenous folks in those countries, and things that are being land that's being taken. There's corruption, and I'm sure in the resources that I'm sure the U.S. government is part of, trying to take resources from countries based on the military might and the economic might of the U.S. That these things, if we don't know our history, history just repeats. And I think it's important that the youth are aware of what happened in the past and realize that it's still ongoing, and that it's important for supporting um, people of other countries and making sure that the same thing doesn't happen to them. I think that's why it's important.
Well, it has happened in a lot of these places where indigenous people, in particular, disenfranchised from their land. I think there's a lot of this going on, and we can set standards. We can set a level of awareness that says, look at what's happening where you are, and try to
Right.
decide what's the fair thing to do, and then work on it. I mean, one of the real important goals of this documentary, which will also, we hope, be a series, is that we create an environment where community groups get together and they talk about what's happening here in our community and how can we grow this awareness beyond just our neighborhood into the state, into the region, and then we take it to the federal government and say, we have a unified front here. We want you to do this. And the Germans paid reparations, the German government, against the popular sentiment about it. They paid reparations to the Jews. There's a lot of reparations movements that we can take examples from,
Mhm.
but you can't give up, is the point.
And those examples are in the documentary?
Well, they will be to some extent.
Mhm.
We want to stick with what's happening here, but the Japanese received some reparations. The Native Americans received a very paltry reparations settlement, and they deserve so much more because their land was stolen, basically.
Yeah.
Um, but we have to speak out against this kind of rampant injustice that took its really one of the most hideous forms in this country, beginning with slavery. You know, it's not
Yeah.
that slavery was confined to the U.S. It was popular everywhere, actually, but the U.S. made itself on the bedrock of slavery. It was the startup from hell, as Dave likes to talk about it.
Also on the subject of money, I have something I hope will be of interest to the young people that might be listening to this podcast, and that is, we need, just for the documentary, maybe a $500,000, so 400 and something $1,000 we need to raise to produce this thing. It's hard to raise money these days. So we have to have an attitude about getting this project done. And I call it the philosophy of when and how. It's not if, it's never if this is going to happen. It's when it's going to happen and how we're going to make it happen. We're always figuring it out. Troy and I have a beautiful relationship. We play volleyball together. We like playing together. We blend well together. And that's why I knew he would be an excellent co-producer director with me. We are figuring it out as we go along, little by little, day by day. And the same goes for reparations. That's what the country will need to do. We'll have to figure it out together, Black and white people.
Yes, as Susan said in the beginning, we have to be a part of the solution. And I think that is just true for most topics that we can talk about. When we look at women getting our rights here in the U.S., you know when that happened? When men started joining us. I mean, when there was movement before then, but I mean, when it really started happening, when the movement started to really take hold and grab, put some teeth in it, so to speak. When we got men to say, yeah, let's vote for this, let's do that. And I think it's the same thing with any other topic. It has to be more than just the people we're talking about that rise up. I was also thinking about what you said earlier, Troy, about when you responded about, people follow suit with what they see on the big stage. And the United States has been on the big stage for a long time. I think that's changing, but we've been on this big stage for a long time. And what we do does affect the rest of the world, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we like it or not. It's just true. And when I look, what I was thinking about was Haiti. The Haitian slaves, the Haitian African descendants that were on that island, when they overthrew France and said, get the hell out, this is our place now. I'm rephrasing that war. When they did that, it inspired, it took decades later, but it was part of the inspiration for us to get our freedom here. And one small place affected another. That's why, and I'm saying this for the audience, that's why things like this matter. It's not just about having a conversation and leaving it there. It's about the inspiration that the conversation can create that can cause movement, even if elsewhere. Even if a girl in Nigeria, a boy in Cambodia, just name a country, name a culture, whatever, can right the wrong of some of the injustices that have done to them, like children in Uganda. There are so many things. There's so many things that this can apply to. But when people see us stand up, and us can be different depending on what we're talking about. But when people see others standing up and making a fuss, standing up and, for something, it can influence and inspire others to stand up for their own version of reparations. And I love, Dave, how you brought up the fact that reparations have actually, I think it was Dave that brought it up, have actually, in fact, happened in other countries, in other cultures that we know about who were wronged. But yet we want to turn a blind eye here in the U.S. and pretend like we don't know nothing. We like to pretend as a culture, because I want to bring this up too. I don't think the audience knows this. And I got this from Trevor Noah, but then he said it in his book. And then I researched a little bit and realized, oh my God, he was exactly right. Apartheid. Do you know that when they designed apartheid, they fashioned it after American racism, after American Jim Crow? They studied the U.S. racism to create their own. For the people who think that it's not real, open up your eyes, take your head out your butt. it's real.
And so
You
did
have
the
a whole
Nazis, actually. They studied American racism, and that was the basis of their campaign of elimination.
I didn't know that about the Nazis. Oh, wow.
It is true.
I'm
They
not
studied
surprised, though.
American racism and said, whoa, they got the systems all worked out. Let's do it here.
Did you know that many of the algorithms and the systems for surveilling workers in U.S. manufacturing and plants today were techniques that were created during slavery? You know, the amount of
I did not know that. No.
length of a break somebody gets, and a lot of these systems came from slavery.
Yeah, it's a long legacy of bad behavior.
Yeah. Well, can I say something that will help you visualize the invoice and what it's going to look like? The people that we've interviewed so far and the others that we will interview, they are going to be our detectives. They are telling us what they have found in terms of mass incarceration or systemic racism or redlining, because they're experts in that field of study. And then we will have a chief detective. And our hopes is that we can get Uzo Adobu or Nisi Nash from Reno 911 and Never Have I Ever as our chief detective. So she will lead the investigation and drop in occasionally to narrate and be on camera to show what her detectives are doing.
Oh,
You like that?
yeah.
That's our wish list. Let's be clear.
Yeah, we have a big wish list, but the thing is, we move ahead every week. We meet every week, and we move ahead every week with some new thing that helps us keep our faith in this. Because the odds aren't really great. We understand that, and the raising money is a real pain, a real pain.
Let me ask you this. For what has being a part of this project done for each of you personally?
Well, it's given me the knowledge of how I'm going to spend the rest of my life.
How so?
I'll be working on this until I die. This will
Probably.
be my daily practice.
Kind of morbid, but
I'm a student in studying the mastery of reparations.
Wow,
and I'm getting better at it every day, and I hope that I'm good enough at it to convince audiences, to help convince audiences that this is worth checking out.
So what a way to leave a legacy. What about you, Susan?
Well, I think I have multiple legacies. This one I care about because I feel that the more you dig into Black history, and that's then another crime of this country is not featuring the enormous contributions of Black people over the centuries.
Yeah.
Is how can we participate in fixing something that's been so terribly wrong for so long? To me, there's no really higher calling than to right an injustice that's longstanding. I feel it's really important. You got to stand up for the right things, do the right things.
Given what I know about you, Susan, and you were on a previous episode, this falls right in line with you because writing injustices is something you care very deeply about. And I love the fact I love the fact that you do that, but I respect it because you're not somebody that just says that as a concept. You've lived it. You've lived it more than most people who just talk about it. So it's kind of, I see it as a continuation of really just who you are as a person.
It is a continuing,
and
an interesting one.
We need some junior Susans being, raised up right now, because this world needs more people like you who are younger, full of energy, and can carry on the next generation. You know what I mean?
That's flattering. I also want to say this point is I love to mentor people. And I'm open to people asking me directly, how can I do this? I don't always have answers, of course, but I do know a lot of stuff, actually.
You definitely do.
They do. I'll say for me, I mean, even though I'm not a young person, I think I do look at Dave and Susan as mentors in some ways to me, because like I said, I was born in the civil rights era. I was born in 1965. When I was in grade school, my parents sent me to a African studies school, or I guess a school where we learned about African history. We learned some Swahili. I was given a Swahili name. I still remember to this
Oh, what
day.
was it?
Otto. Otto was
Opto.
my name, which I believe stands for brilliant, which I don't know about that,
Sure.
um, but I had that legacy, and then I, due to a lot of internal family dynamics, moved from Columbus, Ohio, out to California and experienced a whole new culture, and coming from an area that was predominantly black and lower income, I moved to a county in California that's predominantly white and upper middle class, and so I had to adjust at the age of 12 or 13, I think I was, to that whole social dynamic. But it showed me a lot about our country and our society, how there were like two different worlds, and I grew up feeling comfortable. Well, eventually became comfortable in both worlds. So I spent, like I said, the majority of my career doing more corporate work and not working on social impact projects. And then in the last 2 years now, I had known Dave through, like you said, a social group we have playing volleyball together with a group of other film producers. So I always lived vicariously through all of my film production friends who talked about the projects they were working on and the different areas of social impact campaigns that they worked on. And so when I got involved with this project, I'm learning a lot from Dave and Susan about their experiences with working on campaigns that are focusing on helping people in social impact, like I said. So it kind of came full circle. It brought me back to what I remembered as a youth of being involved in civil rights movement to now. This new project for me is my way of reconnecting to my past, and then continuing the ongoing fight for equality in this country, basically. And for I've always kind of also been against bullying. So I think that this in some ways how people have been bullied, and that is something I'm always passionate about, fighting against bullying. And you see that now in this country's gotten even worse with the current administration, as we all know, and they're trying to ban books, as we talked about, and also change history, and not to mention the immigration policies. And yeah, it's just a huge fight right now for people that are trying to stand up to this wave of anti-black and anti-brown and just anti-trans, anti-everything. And so I think it's important that we have voices that are counter to that movement. Oh, I was just going to say that's what this working on the invoices provided me an outlet to fight against, all of that I just talked about, the racism and.
Okay.
Can I add one little thing about you were speaking of legacy, and that's important, but even more important for me is getting my satisfaction from the daily practice of my craft, not the money, not the celebrity, not the promotions, other rewards, but just the daily practice is where it's the only it's the only place where you really can get your satisfaction from,
Mm. Yeah,
I mean, it's the best place to get it from. Yeah.
yes, from not money, because money can only satisfy you to a certain degree. It can satisfy some things, but only to a certain degree. But that internal satisfaction that you're talking about, that can't be.
Yeah.
There's no amount of money that can do that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're tired, but you're good tired,
Yes, I understand it, because it's kind of like the way I feel with some of the stuff I do. So where can people find you? And you also said you need some more funding for this particular documentary. Are you accepting donations?
Well, we accept donations at this point through a crowdfunder, but we're starting on August 4th is our debut date for a Kickstarter. And one of the benefits that we're going to offer is a coin, a $1 quadrillion coin that celebrates both the effort of the Invoice and Callie, what's her last name?
Kelly House.
The mother of the
foremother.
reparations movement
Oh,
back in.
okay.
So the coins are more like emblems of the reparations movement that we want to support.
Okay. So how can people find you?
Our website is theinvoiceseries.com, and you can email us at theinvoiceseries@gmail.com. And we'll have a Kickstarter up pretty soon, and it'll be on the website.
Great.
And I should add that Susan keeps this project fit and healthy.
Oh, I'm the den mother, yeah.
Thank you for having us.
She keeps Troy and I
I
on
believe
track.
it. I believe it.
Did we file the
Yes.
quarterly reports?
Yeah,
Yes.
she's an executive producer who actually does the job of executive producer.
Well, I'm grateful that you guys came on, Susan, Dave, and Troy. Thank you for coming on the show. And my hopes are that
a pleasure.
this episode, just this conversation, that this conversation will be a mind shift for many. Thank you.
I hope so. And we're also very much open to people contacting us about this, helping us out.
Yeah.
And now for a mind-shifting moment. I rarely on this podcast talk about the past. I'm constantly talking about the future because, after all, this is about our youth and their future. However, this episode, we specifically focus on the past because it matters for your future. So if you're under 24, I'm specifically talking to you. And I don't care what country you're in, Mongolia, Nigeria, New Zealand, Mexico, pick a place, wherever you're listening from. If you do not understand the history of your country, if you do not understand the history of your people, you are almost guaranteed to repeat it. The ones who make a difference in history are the ones who pay attention. Do you know the history of your country? Do you know the things that have gone wrong in your country? What made them go wrong? Do you know the things that went right in your country? The pivots in history where wonderful things happened? What made that happen? Studying that is how you are going to make a difference for your generation. You're the one that's going to have to make this world better than the messed up world we left you, young people. Generations before you, we left you the mess you're living in right now. But if you want to make a difference and you don't want to see history repeated, you're going to have to pay attention to what the history was. Not just, what happened? But how did it happen? Use your critical thinking skills that you were born with and pay attention so that you can be the one to make a difference in your generation. You've been listening to MindShift Power Podcast. For complete show notes on this episode and to join our global movement, find us at fatimabay.com. Until next time, always remember, there's power in shifting your thinking.